Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 772B, and today's date is September 22nd, 2015, and the title of this episode is U.S. is now pre-positioning nuclear weapons in Germany. Let's get right into the economic collapse geopolitical news. Now, about a year ago, we had a scare, an Ebola scare, where the disease was running rampant through Liberia, Senegal, and it looked like, and it still looks like, that was a complete setup. It was completely blown out of proportion, and we know that the U.S. brought in forces to control the situation, and a lot of those troops are still in those countries. And when we looked at those countries, we noticed that each one of these countries had a huge amount of natural gas and oil that was recently discovered. And China was in these countries. The United States wanted the natural resources, so they kind of ginned up a scare. Then they started to scare people here in the United States. Remember, there was a person that came to the United States that had Ebola, and then people were all scared around the country. CDC was coming out with their models, and they were predicting millions of people were going to be infected by February or so of that year. And it all didn't happen. But what did happen is that pharmaceutical companies pushed the idea that we need this Ebola vaccine, that they should be getting money from the government. And what we're seeing right now is this is ongoing and continuing. Now, that seemed like that was a test to see how the people would react, if they would be afraid, and maybe later on use this as a mandatory vaccination false flag event. Because right now the U.S. government donated about $38 million to the pharmaceutical company Regeneron. And over the next 2 years, it's going to create and distribute a cure for Ebola. Other countries are now working on the cure, like United Kingdom, Canada, Russia. There is no officially registered vaccine against Ebola. And we can see at this point in time, if we look at what happened, that this was definitely some type of test. I mean, look what happened with the swine flu. CDC came out there with all their numbers. Oh, there's going to be 600,000 people, and it never turned out that way. But a lot of pharmaceuticals started to receive millions of dollars. Now, we talk a lot about protecting yourself on the internet, keeping everything secure. And the government wants to spy on every single person. They want huge tech companies to report on people that say certain things or do certain things, no matter if they're guilty or whatever. They just want them reported. And there was a provision which would have required the tech industry to report vaguely defined terrorist activity. No one really, there was nothing specific. It's just like, if you mentioned the Islamic State, did you mention something with a clock in it? Because that might refer to a bomb, and things like that. And there's many other different things that they have. Well, the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee now dropped the provision that would have required internet companies to report on vaguely defined terrorist activity on their platforms. The tech companies were completely against this. And this was in controversial Section 603, which was included in the Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2016. But Senator Ron Wyden put a hold on the bill. They're going to rewrite it this time. And the only reason it was stopped was because 30 civil rights groups and trade bodies wrote to key senators warning about the chilling effect that the provision would have on constitutionally protected speech. And that is true because you're allowed to say whatever you want. That doesn't make you a terrorist. And if you're saying it out in public, or if you're saying it on social media, is meaningless. The medium of where you say this makes no difference. You have the right to speak freely wherever you want. And the government does not have the right to infringe on that or to suspect you as a terrorist because you're saying something that might not agree with the government. And this is why we continually have to push ourselves to protect ourselves, to keep them from spying on us. Use encryption. Use startpage.com, which will mask your searches. And I know if you use the proxies on Startpage, sometimes you can't get the full functioning of the website, but at least it masks your searches from Google and other bodies. It makes it harder for the government employees. You can use products like blockitpocket.com. You can slip your driver's license. If you have the Real ID one with the tracking device in it, you can slip it into there. You can slip your credit card with the RFID chip into there, and that will protect you from people walking by with scanners where they can take your information. You can also use it for your phone, your iPad, because these sleeves are interwoven with copper, silver, and it protects and blocks the signal. So there are ways to stop this. I already have on the X22Report.com site, someone created PyCrypt. It's on the right-hand side on the sidebar. Just scroll down. It's completely open source, and you can test that, and it will encrypt your messages. You can also sign up for email encryption, which will encrypt all your email. So there are many ways to do this. The Belgian watchdog was looking at Facebook, and they're saying they snoop on people just like the NSA. They're saying Facebook is spying on people in the exact same way the U.S. National Security Agency does. They're saying that they pretty much set cookies on your computer, on your phone. Even if you log out of Facebook or you're not part of Facebook, they're still using this type of technology to track you if you visit a Facebook page. I mean, if you do a like button, a share button, guess what? You are tracked. Your information is all tracked. A lot of these companies do this. They track everything that you do, and they sell the information later. Or, since the government knows that these companies are tracking you, the government wants this information, and this is why we have the U.S. Freedom Act. This is why they're pushing CISA or CISPA, because that will allow those companies that are tracking you with all this information, they will allow them to supply it to the government, and the corporations will not be liable. I mean, how this is going to help with cyber attacks is beyond me. Getting my bank information, my email information, does not help stop cyber attacks. It just gives them all my information. Where I've been, what sites I'd visit. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to take everything that the government is doing and just moving it on the corporations, because the corporations are already set up for this. And we can see that they won't stop until they get this legislation through. And if they can't get it through, they bring it back, they rewrite it, they make it seem like it's completely different, but it's exactly the same. And then they try events to try to push it through. With cyber attacks, blaming it on North Korea, China, you name it, it was them. And you know it's completely fake. As soon as they come out and they know exactly who it was, that's how you know it's complete propaganda. Because if they know that quickly who it was from these advanced actors, they can stop all spam. They can stop all attacks to all different websites in a blink of an eye. Especially from those non-advanced actors like China, Russia, North Korea, and many other countries. And this is how you know it's completely fake. Now, out in Ukraine, we see that Poroshenko has just signed with NATO a joint declaration to intensify military technical cooperation. And the head of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was visiting Ukraine, is calling on Russia to take the next step in the peace agreement by withdrawing all their heavy weapons from the country's east. The only problem is they don't have their weapons there. They don't have their troops there. And they're just coming out using propaganda once again. Non-stop. It's amazing how they just come out with these statements and they provide no proof whatsoever. And when they do provide proof, It's completely fake. It's these black and white, fuzzy, photoshopped satellite images that show absolutely nothing. Or they post pictures on social media which people can come right out and basically show that, yeah, you got this picture from the internet and now you're just passing it along. It was from 3 years ago. And all of their propaganda completely fell apart in a blink of an eye. But it doesn't mean they're going to stop trying, because they need to get this war started. Well, we now see the U.S. is taking this to the next level. We understand they're moving military assets all across the world. We realize that they have China contained in the Pacific. They've been building up in Eastern Europe. And now, coming from Germany's ZDF public television, they're saying that the U.S. is bringing in atomic weapons to be stationed in Germany. The report says the U.S. will bring into Germany 20 new nuclear bombs, each being 4 times the destructive power of the one that was used in Hiroshima. With the new bombs, the boundaries blur between tactical and strategic nuclear weapons. Angela Merkel's own Conservative Party, the Christian Democratic Union, warns that these new attack options against Russia constitute a conscious provocation of our Russian neighbors. Absolutely, that's what it's all about. It's about provoking Russia. And Angela Merkel is okaying the U.S. to increase America's German-based nuclear arsenal against Russia. This, by the way, is an infringement of Articles 1 and 2 of the Treaty of the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, which is the treaty that provides non-nuclear states the assurance that the existing nuclear powers will not try to use their nuclear status so as to take over the world. And we can see at this point in time, why in the world would they need to provide these to Germany? Well, we know eventually this war, World War III, will go nuclear. And these central bankers, they don't care at this point. They don't care because they realize their system is at its end. And if they cannot get into Syria, take over Iran, and continually take over more and more countries to prop the system up, their only option is war to cover up this entire collapse. They don't want to be blamed for this because they want to start this system all over again. I mean, they'll just go right into their bunkers, come out later on, and they don't care how many millions of people die. They really don't. Look at World War I. We had an economic crisis. World War II, what happened before that? An economic crisis. Here we are, 2008. Economic crisis. We never recovered. Here comes war. This is what we're seeing right now. And we're seeing that all of Europe is being bombarded with all of these refugees. They want to bring them into this fight. Get angry that this is happening. I mean, Nigel Farage is out there saying that this immigrant flood threatens our civilization. Remember, the U.S. started this with the help of other countries like Turkey, Israel, coalition forces. This plan was created to create havoc in this area. Right now, there are countries in Europe that do not want to accept more refugees. They're saying, you know what, we cannot accept any more. But the EU, is saying, yes, even though you don't want it, you will accept them. There are 4 governments: Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Romania. They're opposed to the proposal of accepting more of these refugees. But guess what? When you're part of the EU system, your government has no say. When you're part of the central banking system, your government has no say. A lot of time the government is intertwined in it, like the United States. Sometimes the governments are not. But it doesn't matter. They have no say. France right now, President Hollande is out there saying, we are ready to expand our airstrikes in Syria. We're going to get the Islamic State. Now, what is he using as the excuse that they're allowed to go in and bomb inside Syria? Well, they're using the excuse of self-defense. And you say to yourself, wait, when were they attacked? Remember when France was attacked? The terrorism attack, and they had those shooters and it was all a false flag? They were shooting blanks. The guy ran out with his hands tied. I mean, all of this was completely set up. And they're saying they've done their intel and they realized that these attacks were set up by the Islamic State. And we were attacked, so now in self-defense, we can go into Syria. Because where did they originate? Syria. See how this thing's playing out here? So now we have France going into Syria to bomb the infrastructure and the Free Syrian Army. Do you really think they're going after the Islamic State? Absolutely not. We see Russia is continually building up and bringing in more military hardware into Syria. And yes, they are. Assad is asking them. Has Assad asked them to fight in Syria? Not as yet. But that is coming. Hopefully Putin can calm the situation down. But there are reports that Russia is going to be bringing in about 2,000 military personnel to that area. There's already planes there. Are they using them? Are they fighting? No, they want to have talks with the U.S. Kerry's agreed that, okay, we will have talks on this. Right now, Russia's saying they're bringing this in to protect the government in Syria. And if truly the Islamic State poses a threat to the world, then Russia and Iran should be involved in this. And we know Iran has very close ties with Syria, and they have an agreement. If Syria is attacked, Iran, if asked, will come to their aid. And you know the United States, they don't want them hitting the Islamic State because it's their proxy army. They're going after Assad. We have two different things going on right now. Putin knows this. He's trying to back the U.S. into a corner to calm the situation down. Because believe me, if he wanted a war, they could have done this back in 2013. They could have done it in Ukraine. There'd be no reason for a ceasefire. They could have just come out and done it. Said, okay, you're attacking, we're attacking back. But right now, they're trying to get the leaders back together, trying to talk and calm the situation down. But we know the U.S. government central bankers, they're not going to stop. They're going to keep pushing. We see that the U.S. is going to escalate their plans in Syria. They're going to lower their vetting requirements because the officials say getting more arms into the area is more important than vetting the fighters. So they're just letting anyone in at this time because they don't care. They need the hardware in there. They're going to war in Syria. This is what it seems their whole entire plan is. If Russia's there, it doesn't matter. We're going to war. Now, Syria did something very interesting. The foreign minister is out there saying, listen, any country in fighting terrorism should join Syria. And this pretty much eliminates the coalition members because they're supporting terrorism, the Islamic State. So any other country that wants to join Russia, Iran, Syria in fighting terrorism, come on in. Help us get rid of the Islamic State. Now, the U.S. is going to be bombarded with other countries most likely coming into this scenario. So what is the U.S. going to do at this point? We're going to have to watch and see. But one small move can trigger World War III. And the central bankers, they don't care at this point. It doesn't matter to them. Because they know that eventually they're going to have to create a war. And if this is it, then so be it. Yesterday we talked about the false flag here in the United States when the Pope visits, about a terrorist trying to go after the Pope. Now, who knows what they're going to use? The FBI, DHS is out there saying they're hearing chatter. They don't have anything specific, which they never do. But from Pennsylvania, the state police, they're worried right now that terrorists disguised as law enforcement officers might launch an attack during the Pope's visit to the United States. And this is going around as an internal police department memorandum. And it's being distributed to other police forces. So the question is, what is their agenda? Well, if they pin this on the Islamic State and its terrorism, they have the authorization for war pending in Congress. And they can say, oh my God, look what just happened. The Islamic State snuck into the United States, posed as a police officer, and they had the ability to go after the Pope. We have to stop them. If they pin this on a person who has weapons, who's a United States citizen, they can go down the route of basically gun control. And they can push that agenda. So we're going to have to watch this situation very, very carefully to see which way they go and what they try to push here. But it seems like something might be in the works, and we'll see if anything comes out from this. But one thing we do know is that this entire system is coming down. This entire system is collapsing. We're at the end here. And from this point on, things are going to accelerate. We're going to see more fluctuations in the market. We're going to see the market trying to be pushed up. It won't get that high, but we'll see lower lows. And this is going to continue on. And eventually, this whole system is going to come crashing down. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.